but Gore, I just think there's so much to look at individually. This Oni Warriors team is always going to have us talking about the individual matchups because they're players that like taking
individual
matchups.
I think you got to look at mid, and for multiple reasons, right? They're brothers, right? And we haven't gotten to mention that one in a little while. Pagon going up against Vinny Q. I think this is going to be a matchup fun to watch, and one that even last year was going towards Pagon, right? Kind of fresher blood, I think, to the scene than what we saw out of Vinny Q. And one that has more historically gone the way of Pagon. And so that the kinship drops once they load into the game.
Right.
And I imagine that's going to be a very intense matchup because that one does weigh, I think, heavily on the map. Jungle obviously always comes into the equation. Panatom, who has been one of the best junglers in the SPL for years. Oath, who has that potential, right? It's always that potential. But whether or not we're going to see it fully realized, a lot of the turnarounds, a lot of the success that the Hounds have found so far this year has been sick plays by Oath, and so I wouldn't be surprised if that maybe starts to open things up. And the other one, I think, because the Hounds ban out the Nox, it's worth mentioning, it is going to be in the support role, right? Because Quig, still trying to get things under wraps over the last couple of years. There's been discussions. You've seen people post games for any of the Bolts matches. You'd have heard several times about how Jake's the problem for the Bolts, right? Jake's the issue. Jake's inting. Jake's the problem, et cetera, et cetera. I could probably go and find like 30 comments pretty quickly.
You could.
And then you come into this year and you're like, oh, actually maybe Jake wasn't the problem. Jake just didn't have a team that fit the style he plays. And now he has that around him. I think that Nox ban is very appropriate. Again, the Maui needed a little work yesterday, but we're going to see what he has to offer for us today. I think that we have not gotten to see maximum potential Jake just yet. And we got glimpses of it for sure over the last couple of years. You have to remember the Bolts went on a long tear. I think it was Phase 2 last year of wins, and Phase 2, I believe, the year before, just win streak after win streak. And so I think that it's going to help translate here for the Warriors' success.
Yep, completely agreed. Nox score, you mentioned it. Played 3 of the last 6 games for Awesome Jake, including the kickoff tournament just a few weeks ago. CERN will end up being first pick here for the Oni Warriors. Netrioid's so talented, and again, I think you could have a similar conversation about Netrioid that we just had about Jake, where
there it is.
This is the style of team that really seems to fit in Net and his play style. Herc hover, but not for long. It's locked in, potentially followed by an Ishtar.
Blades of light.
Is indeed, so not wanting to delay the Hunter pick at all, despite the Oni Warriors already having their CERN, Herc, Ishtar. A strong 1-2 from the Hounds.
You know, what's been really interesting is watching some of these gods and realistically how successful these gods have been or how much they've shown up.
Ooh.
A lot, the top 5, like if you go pick man percent, Horus, Hercules, Marty, Vamana, Guan Yu. There's Warriors galore up there. I like the Hercules pick, though. It was absolutely baffling yesterday that the Warriors weren't leaning on it in Game 1. And even more surprising that the Leviathans also skipped over it. This time around, the Hounds aren't going to let that slip through. I think that's a very easy pickup for Ducky. It's going to be a very, already, impactful player, impactful god, just because of what Hercules brings in his kit. It doesn't need, like, you could go 0-6 in lane. I don't even care. As long as you can make it to late game somewhat tanky, you're going to get a knock-up, you're going to get a push, you're going to get a boulder. And so I like that that's the draft for the Hounds. Plus, you draft that Ishtar, as you had mentioned. You get a lot of pressure in the lane for it. Someone that hasn't been showing up as often, right? Marty has kind of taken the place with Kern, Ishtar, some of the other hunters swapping in and out for the other half of it. This is a matchup that feels like they recognize, you know what, crit right now is where we want to be. We don't want that ability damage. If you do, maybe you draft it for mid, but otherwise, I like seeing the current Ishtar. Even if it is the only 2 hunters we've been seeing for a couple of months, it just feels like they are doing a little more consistently than what we've gotten to see out of Marty. Because if I'm looking at it, like his pick ban has been pretty solid, but I believe his win rate itself hasn't been too spectacular.
No, hasn't been the best.
Overall, 33%, 2 losses, 4 wins. So seeing him go from like a top pick, top ban to kind of forgotten, I think players are starting to realize he's got a very niche position in drafts, and they're just not going to deal with it.
Yeah, we sort of talked about Marty in the same vein as like an AMC, though, with the ultimate a bit more safe. Does not look like that'll be a conversation piece for now. Worth mentioning with this Morrigan lock-in for the Oni Warriors, Couldn't tell you where that's going to go. You
Nope.
traditionally would think mid lane.
And yesterday, I think I declared, I was like, you know what? This is like such
Yep.
a good pick for Pagon. It plays him so well.
In reality, I can't tell you where the Susano's going either.
Good, that's
could
a good
also
point.
could also be Pagon playing Susano out of mid. So some flexibility for the Oni Warriors. And that's what Ducky talked about in the pregame interview, is that they just make you guess. This
Yep.
is an Oni Warriors team that you have no idea what they're going to pick. You have no idea where they're going to play it. It was Morgan solo yesterday. We've seen Susano for Pagon in past matchups. They make you think about every single lock-in. Some supports end up getting taken off the table with the final wave of bans.
I think that's the important factor. You know, I talked a little bit earlier. We were talking about the team fight, right? How things kind of fell apart for the Hounds in the team fight, and how the Warriors, despite all odds, feel like they are more than capable in those team fights. Actually, you know, talking about one of the guys on the screen there on the left, Pagon, who I believe had mentioned that he had felt kind of overshadowed a little bit when doing shot calling on the Dragons, right? Wasn't able to get his voice maybe as heard because there's so many voices on that old roster that admittedly you're going to have clashing comms no matter what, unless one person just gets to kind of take over. But has talked about the fact that he's feeling a lot better and more confident about it, being more vocal this time around. And I think that's a huge difference, not just for him, but it fits the playstyle of this team because they all, I mean, we use hold W and sometimes we say that and it might feel, I don't know, maybe mocking or belittling or something like that, maybe just too high view.
Yeah.
But that is what they do. They like to play aggressive. They like to get it into the fight, and they all play at a similar pace. That's the thing that really helps them click together. And so knowing that you have someone who's making shot calls that match what you in your mind think should be happening as well, you know, they had said it. You don't have to call for that stun because that stun's just going to be there because they all know that that's how they want to play. And that's the thing, you know, that I've talked to Mifflin about and that I'm a little worried about is seeing how it transcends metas. But as of right now, it's working incredibly well for them. And I think that if this team, again, with this amount of pressure, with a draft like this, where even in the top 3, I'm not sure where any of these are going because of how much they shift things around. And hell, even with the bottom 2, you're not entirely certain where some of those hovers might be going.
Athena.
There's definitely a lot of wiggle room, I think, for this Warriors draft. And that, like the Hounds have pointed out and like Ducky had said, is one of the hardest things to deal with as a team where you don't know how they're going to draft. You know how they're going to play at you, but you don't have a lot of time to prepare for it. Someone's eventually going to find that kryptonite, maybe trip them up. But the Hounds have a lot of work to do and try and do that here.
Merlin, 71% win rate so far.
Yeah, he's been doing pretty good.
Either solo or mid, and then the Morrigan will go in the other spot. Which is funny that we say it so casually, but I guess just what we expect with this Oni Warriors team now. Normally this would be a big deal, but with the Warriors, I think it's just what we're expecting. A Sylvanas as well, with an Atlas. This is an Atlas mid. I think it must be from Benny Q. We've seen Atlas mid once or twice.
I feel like he's also played a Sylvanas mid, but
we have seen Sylvanas
we
mid
can
as well.
maybe ignore that
I might,
pretty handily.
with Benny Q and then all of the Oni Warriors, I was expecting some goofiness in picks and bans. And so none of this is all that surprising to me. There's going to be what I'm guessing is one of these 2 Guardians over in mid for the Hounds, and then one of Merlin or Morrigan in the solo lane for the Warriors.
If we had like line swaps or anything like that in Smite, Benny Q would be a Warriors player. Right? It's just it'd be like he'd be the 6th man on the team that like, hey, you know what? We need to tag X, Y, or Z out. Bring Benny in. It feels like he has that style of play and that kind of mentality, especially with his picks. Maybe it would flourish over there, same way Pagon has, but like you said, seeing what it is. I don't mind the Atlas in mid. I think it was actually, you know, Hurry last year sometime. We had pulled him in on the desk prior to him getting picked up by the Scarabs. And there's a point where he was saying, like, look, think about what Atlas brings. He's like, he's got really good ranged engage, but good ranged damage. He does a lot of things that if you typically talked about them, you would talk about it from a mage. And then he's also got Guardian scaling. So really, if you build him for a lot of that damage, maybe it's not going to hit as hard as some of the other mages, but you've got maybe more survivability. I think kind of equitable to Tiamat in a way, not necessarily like complete parallels, but in the sense that you've got someone who's a little tanky, pretty survivable, does a decent amount of damage. I think Tiamat's scaling is definitely going to help bring that damage number up. But because of all the other CC that, you know, is in the kit for the Atlas, it really helps it out in mid. And I think that it's something that, I mean, look, I'm probably not thinking, hey, this is going to get me first blood very often. but you aren't really looking for the kills yourself. I think they're stacking them over onto the Zerkat, over onto the Ishtar.
Yep.
Probably a little bit onto the Hercules here as well. Get those 3 online a little earlier on, get them rolling in a comfortable position. That's where your team's going to find the success. The other 2 are really just the setup.
Such a unique matchup between the Oni Warriors and the Eldritch Hounds. Can the Warriors continue their role? Can the Eldritch Hounds start a role for themselves? We'll find out. Game 1 with J-Mac and Trelly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave and Gore on the desk. And it's J-Mac, it's Trelly for game number 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Eldritch Hounds. Doug spectating for us as well, jumping into this first one. We saw a little bit of this yesterday from the Oni Warriors, Trelly. The Morgan solo for SOT. Pagon, though, taking the Merlin this time. Sop maybe not having the most fun on that god. In game 2 of his set yesterday up against the Hercules. Doesn't want to have to try and repeat against that. But probably the most interesting so far out of the draft, because we saw a lot of this from the Warriors yesterday, is BennyQ on this Atlas mid. How do you kind of feel about this as a mid lane selection? The desk kind of talked about some of its strong points. How do you kind of feel about it, Trelly?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those picks that it can work. I think Atlas can do a lot of damage. It's just it gets punished very easily. If you're able to body block that dash or just CC him to death, it's not the easiest pick to make work. And BennyQ has gone back to it time and time again, trying to find success. He does find mild success in the games. He's able to find kills, get damage off, but not many wins, and I think that's the big difference maker. But he still is confident in the pick, and I have went on record saying that I think, first of all, the Merlin solo was not a big fan of it. It didn't work out, was not very good for Sot. You know, it wasn't a great draft at the Oni Warriors. But the Morgan solo I like a lot better, because you're in a traditional 1v1 matchup. If you ever find a good stun, if Ducky ever carelessly uses Driving Strike, you can just transform into, you could be a Zerkat, you could be Susana, you could be a Hercules yourself, and just find that 1v1 matchup. So I do like the Morgan solo. I think you can dominate a lane matchup if you play it properly, and if you're able to stay safe until you get ultimate.
Both the fast blink pulls beads from Pagon. And that's a great start for the Eldritch Hounds to get some pressure in that mid lane. Put Pagon a little bit uneasy on this Morgan pick. Or I'm sorry, on this Merlin pick. I was thinking about the Morgan there for a second, because yesterday in every single game that the Warriors were playing, Adapting was camping SOT. At one point 0-3 in game number 3, died a couple of times in games 1 and 2. Similar to how Ducky's trying to get some kills on SOT here. First blood though goes to Oath up against Pagon in the mid. Stunned by SOT is the only reason he lives up against Ducky. That Driving Strike just a second off of cooldown. So living in the solo lane, but not so much for Pagon. Lost the beads early and then lost his life right after.
Yeah, good looks by Oath. I mean, blinks in, pulls the bead, says, hey, I'm looking for another one. Is able to find it in BennyQ as the Atlas mid with the Conduit gem. You're going to have better clear. You're going to be a bit tankier early on. It just takes a bit before Merlin gets safe. I think you are more susceptible to death as Merlin between levels 1 and 3 than you are for the rest of the game, just because you have to decide, hey, at level 2, am I getting Flicker? Am I getting my escape? Or am I getting more damage to help clear the wave? Doesn't really matter at this point. When you lose those beads, Merlin goes down. So much sustain over here in the duo lane, though. They're scrapping.
All the beads, though, to get away from the taunt. Dash in by Netroid to keep the chase going. Coast is one auto from death, but he will live. Meanwhile, we had a scrap on the right side of the map as well. SOT and Panatom both getting a bit low against Oath and Ducky, standing still near full HP for the both of them there. Narrowly avoiding death in the duo lane. Panatom and Sod able to squeak away from death on the right side.
I love the fact that they are scrapping, though. I mean, usually when you see a duo lane like this, when you see a Sylvanas, you don't expect too much fighting. You expect a lot of sustain, as SOT is going to go stealth out. Does get the kiss off, though.
Oh, and that is just a turnaround death now. Ducky credited to the kill, but all the setup there for Oath, taunting him out of that stun. SOT is getting the camp treatment again. It's what we saw yesterday whenever he was facing up against Adapting, and now losing his blue buff on top of that. Rough start for SOT in the solo lane.
Yep, this is what can happen if you don't stay safe until your ultimate comes up. Once you get that ult, a lot of safety. You have your beads up, you're feeling good. But Oath knows this, and I got to give credit to this Zerkat. I mean, plays as aggressively as possible, recognizes, hey, we can probably have pressure in mid. Merlin's going to take a bit to get online. We definitely have pressure before this Morgan gets access to that ultimate, so we're looking for blue buff invades. Oath has made it happen throughout the map so far, and that's why you see the leads in pretty much every lane. I mean, Netroid and Awesome Jake were getting the better end of duo lane, as you probably should, once you get that extra sustain online and you're not able to clear the wave as easy. But Quick and Vaporous Coast, you'd think, would get the better end of just lane pressure, right? They both have those lob autos, they walk up and have all sorts of pressure, but it's the taunt into the root there from Netroid. So much damage that can be confirmed with those glaive auto attacks, and that's the only real lead the Oni Warriors have in that duo lane.
BenQ putting a bit of pressure on Pagon there, seeing that he's putting his priority points into that first ability, probably his best so for easy ranged poke damage on this Atlas. Beads are back up for Pagon now, so shouldn't be too worried should Oath make a rotation back in towards this mid lane. You can see that Oath maybe will try and fish for a potential pick, but with BenQ going back to base, might be a little longer before Oath makes his mark known once again in the mid lane. So 2 kills up now for the Eldritch Hounds. Got to talk to Ducky a little bit before the game. Pagon will eat the beads this time through with the ultimate from Oath and some support from Jake.
Does that kill?
To mitigate through, BenQ with ult, flicker just to the side. Now you're going to say a sentiment of, would that have been a kill? Quite possible with that gem, but now SOT finds the taunt onto Ducky. Doesn't have the immunity from ultimate, just running as far away as he can. Finds a double push to go through the Typhoon, the double knock-up as well. Ducky may just live through this because Oath is here, the boulder down as well. And Oath may try until this one gets the taunt onto Panatom, but with the jet stream down, Panatom is out.
Ducky with the double push into the double pull. Is he still gonna fall though? The stun! Look at Ducky. He's so confused. He's like, am I about to die here? I'm wondering the same thing. That stun is gonna do so much damage. You already see it goes through. But where's the follow-up? That's the question, J-Mac. This one's gonna be close.
Yeah, Oath is landed in and right in the middle of both of them. It's a matter of, can he body block a single ranged auto from this Morrigan that could potentially find that killing blow onto Ducky, as you say, is currently stunned as well. TBD, as far as if Ducky will go down.
I can tell you he deserves to live just because of what he did prior.
Yo, for sure. That and all the time, I mean, we see these Hercules and the number of outplays that we have been seeing just over the course of, I would even say, this season on that pick, considering how little maybe we've seen Hercules up until this. Maybe it makes a little more sense. We're not as accustomed to seeing the outplays that can be done there, but Ducky specifically has really made this pick shine so far in Season 10.
I would say so, and I think it's a bit surprising that it gets left through so much, but I guess there are some impact picks throughout the entirety of the map that you don't want to give up. And can you worry about the Hercules that 40% of the time where he gets online late game and sets up so much for the team? The other 60, I guess, you're just worried about other picks. So Ducky gets to reprise that role, and so far has looked clean. In this case, I think that Oath has also been putting on a clinic. This Circuit has been roaming throughout the entire of the map. It just seems like wherever he shows up, he's either pulling relics or getting damage, and that's a big look for an early Circuit, because late game, we know what happened with the changes to Circuit with the crit chance. We've seen how much you can do late game, especially with a little lead like this.
And I think that's the important part that you bring up, is getting beads and getting damage up on the opposition, because a lot of times when we see the Circuit and sometimes the other supports that we see around with Circuit, it's one getting one set. Either one's getting beads or one's getting damage, but not often they're getting both. This time Oath able to do both of those, at least for his team. And that's even without Quig rotating out of lane just yet. Once the Sylvanas gets through, those pulls start landing, that's going to be a guaranteed beads. Those roots start landing if your mobility is down. Got to be able to beads away from there. So for now, Oath feeling like he's really setting himself up for success, but also even setting up Quig for some of the future rotations.
Yeah, Quig's just in lane, though. He's just got to...
He's just chilling.
He's just going to sit over there. I think Awesome Jake and Quig are both just playing duo lane duty right now. We saw almost dead one time. Got very far away. One auto. Could have done it, but they're just sitting back. And I'm waiting to see the aggressive rotations, because early game, Pagon's getting pressured, right? That does open up the door for BenQ. We've been talking a lot about Atlas mid. Can it work if given some space? Can it work if given a small lead like this? This is, I argue, one of the only times it can work, when you are ahead. It's so easy to punish this pick from behind, but since BenQ's got that lead, he can sort of use his spells as aggressively as possible. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Apologies on the day. We're getting a quick peripheral swapped out for one of our players. We should be jumping ourselves right back into the game here in just a moment. We should be able to jump right back into the action. And the anticipation now, Trelly. Does Ducky go down? SOT needs 2 autos, but he had the splash after. Oath makes it a 1-for-1 trade. to get at least a little bit of extra benefit there, but Sant does manage to claim the kill against Ducky, and Oath trades it back out.
And that's what I was expecting to happen, right? Ducky has to die in that situation, but a lucky crit there to confirm the kill onto SOT. You get that crit chance once you get that ultimate. It's going to come through eventually, but counting on it, you know, that's the risky call. And Oath gets a second kill. 3-1 here for the Eldritch Hounds, and their aggression is not slowed down. It just seems like if Oath wants to fight, he's going to fight, whether that's in solo or in mid lane. Not much going over the left side of the map, though. I haven't seen Phantom or Oath really put any pressure towards this duo. And I think you got these immobile Guardians. If you can just delay the dash from Athena, there's a lot of CC that can sort of interrupt that. Could be looking to get aggressive over in that lane as well.
Now we got both the Guardians of the Eldritch Hounds chilling out in the mid lane. Quig has made his rotation over to get a little bit of assist towards Benny Q. Meanwhile, Awesome Jake sticking around with Netroid for a little while longer over in that duo lane, maybe soaking up a little bit of extra farm. But now with the opportunity to go back to base, Awesome Jake, you might start to see some rotations from this Athena. And it's kind of similar mindset of what we got to see yesterday when the Chernobog came out for this Oni Warriors team, which is you're never really in a disadvantage in these fights because all it takes is one brief second and all of a sudden your 2v2 that you're in is now a 3v2 for yourself. And that was kind of the big problem in game number 1, at least for Leviathans to deal with, was this global pressure from at least the Chernobog. Now, instead of getting a heavy damage dealer rotate over, you're getting your frontliner and Jake to move over.
Yeah, Awesome Jake is going to be targeted here. Good pull, and they've got the CC chain. He's going to be stuck in place for a while.
Got to get the damage through, though, and well, there's not a whole lot from Quig and Oath up against Jake. He'll be able to channel that Defender of Olympus, get himself out of danger right away with no hesitation.
I thought more damage was going to be coming through there. It just seemed like the good pull, the CC, but Oath not doing much, and actually jumps in here. Oath doesn't realize where the rest of the team is.
Panatom gets stunned by Coast, able to dash away, but that's going to be a force out of the jungler. No beats for him. Now Pagon under fire by Benny Q. A dash in. Ultimate, not enough damage. Benny Q going to get yanked back in, but Oath will dash through, finds one, finds the taunt for the double. Oath is popping off for the Eldritch Hounds. Benny Q so close to a kill. Oath will go down as well. It is carnage across the map, Trelly.
I mean, Oath comes up huge there. Benny Q really wants that solo kill, doesn't quite have enough damage, but the Circuit is able to clean that up flawlessly. SOT with the clutch rotation as well, though that shutdown is big onto Oath. 4-0 on this Circuit, and would have been able to make it out. That Dark Omen was necessary. Awesome Jake would not be able to finish that kill without SOT rotating. Unfortunately, loses his blue buff because of that rotation. Ducky's not going to let that one go for free. But now the Morgan's sitting at 2-2. At the very least, as you said, that double global presence, it can be really annoying to deal with the Athena ultimate, and now you've got the Morgan and the Athena. That could just be 2 Athenas. That could certainly add up. So I like the fact that SOT is making those rotations with this Doom Orb. If you're getting the movement speed, you should be using it for those clutch rotations.
Oath now level 10 on the Circuit. That said, 4-1-1 to his name. A part of every single kill for the Eldritch Hounds, and 4 of them directly under his belt this time through. The Eldritch Hounds haven't really built up too much of a lead just yet. Only about 1,000 gold to their name. No real objectives to kind of go for in this early game. Gold Fury is up, but not really the damage value, at least from either of these teams, to go for it this early. Pyromancer's not up just yet for these 2 teams to go for. It feels like it's been just a lot of fighting for the sake of fighting, especially when you look at that fight around there. Looked like it was one to set up for Gold Fury. It could be an answer for the Warriors now. Quig taunted back in. Oath gets an ultimate on top of Panatom. Benny Q throws out the Gamma Burst, but it's not enough damage coming from this Atlas mid. The Eldritch Hounds just missing out on a little bit of DPS to take out the Warriors.
Yeah, it just seems like these 2 teams' playstyles are clashing here. Oath gets caught out by the taunt, should have enough damage to get away. Now Awesome Jake pulled back in. Both of these teams, they want to scrap early. They want to look for aggression. We've seen it so many other times where they're able to find pressure and just run with that early game. And it seems like we're seeing that in a big way here, where they both are just looking for fights consistently. There's never a, hey, we're just going to, I guess besides duo lane, right? Coast and Netroid are just accepting that, hey, we're both going to be pushing in waves and we're not going to look for too much aggression. Everyone else is scrapping. There are no objectives to look at currently. No one's grouping up towards Gold Fury. Pyromancer's not available just yet. They have been fighting just for the sake of fighting, and you gotta love to see it. All the while now, Coast is gonna look for the ultimate. That's because Panatom's on the way.
Panatom goes in, no pull because beads are there for Coast. And now Quig on the rotation back through. Ult is available for the Sylvanas, but not going to try and connect that route onto Panatom or Netroid this time around. Now with Jake here, makes it a bit uneven once more. Still no Defender of Olympus from Jake. And I don't think SOT is going to be getting a blue buff anytime soon, as Oath and Ducky have been camping that buff. But now that there's knowledge that there's two on the right side, the Oni Warriors will immediately go to the Gold Fury. And this is a lot of what we saw yesterday, Charlie, was Oni Warriors, they try and go for a pick, they don't find it, they send one, maybe two to base, and they capitalize by taking an objective. Eldritch Hounds will answer for one of their own, but Oni Warriors take Gold Fury, Eldritch Hounds get Pyro.
It's going to be a decent trade for the Eldritch Hounds. At the very least, they're able to grab a Runic Bomb for themselves. If, you know, they wanted it, which they did, and they just left it there, so not going to pick up that Runic Bomb. I suppose if you look at their consumable slots, a lot of wards. Ducky certainly could have grabbed it, but everyone else, I guess, not wanting to go over and actually pick up that Runic Bomb. So the gold is what we're going to talk about, and it's not that big of a deal trading early on. The Gold Fury starts to get a little bit more worth as the game continues, so it's not the end of the world losing that. I think just good pressure there from the Oni Warriors. Wouldn't be surprised if Sot said, hey, I don't know if it's a coincidence, but every time this blue buff spawns, there's a Circuit here. You guys might have some pressure over in left lane when that's happening, and they decide to make the pull. And that's about as easy as it gets. So the Oni Warriors and the Eldritch Hounds trade objectives, and that's going to be down for quite some time. The question is, are they going to still look for aggression with objectives then? Usually we see these teams fight over the objectives once they're gone. They sort of go back to farming. If they catch someone out, yeah, they'll go for the scrap, but besides that, it's a whole lot of just idle play. But it seems like Oath is still trying to get aggressive. Wanted to pull the beats from Pagon a little bit too far. And was able to juke out the taunt there from Awesome Jake. So Cat gets a hold on to her beads as well.
And talking a little bit about Circuit, we saw a bit of a different build path from Panatom yesterday, going towards a little bit more Bruiser-style Circuit compared to Oath, going to this more crit glass cannon style. Do you have a preference for one or the other, Trelly? Because it felt like Panatom almost kind of got forced into it because Sot's running this damage solo comparatively now to where you don't really necessarily need to go that because you have Ducky on a Hercules for Oath. So do you think it's just a comp dependency, or do you think it's a player preference maybe?
It's probably a little bit of both. I think that damage Circuit is always more fun, but when you use that ultimate and you're essentially just sitting there and you don't have the Aegis and you just get absolutely one-shot, it's never fun. Ducky's about to figure out if it's fun or not. He's got a lot of CC to deal with.
Fast beads and an ultimate, but a taunt back in. Ducky is good as dead to the 3-stack of the Oni Warriors. And what will the response of the Eldritch Hounds be? It was pressure to the left lane. Netroid so far back in lane because Oath is hunting around the jungle. When you got this much damage on the Oni Warriors, Ducky, no matter how tanky he may be, there's not enough to stop him.
And see, you might be looking at that play, you guys at home, and say, oh, that's so cringe. They three-dove Ducky. If it's only 2, he probably lives there. But it's a genius play, because what's the answer? What do the Eldritch Hounds do in the meantime? They're just looking around the jungle. Maybe you get a purple buff, but now they know. They can force a play on a Netroid here, and they're going to 3-stack over and left. There's no objectives. You might as well look for the dive.
He takes 2 sets of beads away with his ultimate, though. Pulled just off the mark by Quig, a little wide to the right side. Now Jake trying to slow things down because Panatom on the way back. No ultimate through. Knock up by Quig. A root in place. Triple taunt by Jake. And a jet stream for Panatom for some extra damage. A purple buff invade at the end of the day for the Eldritch Hounds, but that cost them a lot, Shirley. 2 sets of beads and a couple of ultimates.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have the amount of chain CC that the Oni Warriors had over for Ducky. Again, you can 3-stack in a simple lane when there's no objectives to be grabbed, right? You know, oh no, we put 3 over and right, there's no Fury. Same applies over the left side of the map. That was the call. Hey, we're going to dive Netroid. We're going to get an easy kill. We know there was just 3 over on right. Unfortunately, you don't have that amount of CC that the Oni Warriors had. I mean, they just had Awesome Jake ulting in. They had Panatom that could just pull in, then use the ultimate. Of course, SOT is also providing that amount of lockdown. Netroid was just able to dash away, and also good peel from Awesome Jake to make that rotation over. Oni Fury's back up, though. It has spawned back in. So I'm thinking Eldritch Hounds want to group up around that objective this time around. Don't want to go for the trade. But it looks like it's actually the Oni Warriors who are going to immediately pull the Pyro before anyone notice.
Eldritch Hounds sleeping on one objective, not the other, though. Fury not even contested by the Eldritch Hounds. Nobody in position for it either. Ducky has made his rotation towards mid. Doesn't even use the teleport, just walked in from base. But now nothing to be done for the Eldritch Hounds. They don't immediately try and pull a Fury. Oni Warriors just get a Pyromancer for absolutely free. And Charlie, what does that maybe adjust now for momentum for the Warriors? Because they were down, like 5-2 as far as kills were concerned. It was only about 1,000 gold. Now with positioning around the Oni Fury, Oni Warriors can really start this team fight up. Jake goes in, finds a taunt onto just Benny Q, but it's only Benny Q who eats that taunt. He'll be just fine to start it out.
Yep, full rotation over. Both Soul Landers are here. You do lose that bubble if you're Awesome Jake, so you have to watch out for a bit of the CC that the Hounds are able to dish out, but no team wants to go for the pull immediately. That ward vision was pretty clutch there for the Eldritch Hounds. They realized early on, there's a 4-man grouping on this Fury. We want to watch out. And Sot's been on point with hitting these Dark Omens. You don't want to go in with that mark on you. You know, it can get exploded and even more damage comes your way. So you got to watch out for where this Morgan is positioning throughout the team fight. But the Hounds have not left. They're still sticking around this Oni Fury. They've got Ducky here. They've got their Soul Laner for a reason. Remember, Sot doesn't have teleport. He has his ultimate. He could teleport into Athena and get there immediately. But Ducky wants to use that relic for some use, so he's going to stick over here for a little bit longer before going back over to solo lane. It seems like a bit of a double down at the moment. No team wants to go for the pull, so Ducky will channel the back. I'm wondering if the Oni Warriors figure this out if they go for the pull once again, but still, ward vision on the objective, meaning no team is going to be able to sneak it, not yet.
No, not with those Oracle Harpy Vision helping out the Warriors and Eldritch Hounds with just a regular old ward sitting inside the pit as well. Netroid, who's been the subject of invades at least for the Eldritch Hounds in these last couple of rotations, he had to take his buff all the way back towards tier 2 tower to guarantee that it doesn't get invaded by the Hounds. Ducky, he's been over here for a while now. Didn't need to use the teleport to get over towards mid, just walk there, try to set up for Gold Fury, didn't find anything. Will now finally rotate back out to the solo lane, but to me, Trelly, I mean, as long as he has this teleport up, can get back in no problem, but this should be a call maybe for the Warriors to get the action started. Oath and Panatom will trade out some damage. Fast beads from Oath to escape the clutches of Sot, but this is exactly what the Oni Warriors do. They try and find these cheeky picks, and they go immediately for an objective. Oni Warrior, only Coast is here to try and stop this one. Will fire out the ultimate, does not take it away. The Oni Warriors get the Fury, ult from Benny. Just not enough damage on a Netroid. Double taunt from Jake. Might be the last thing that he gets to do. If one pull goes through, one root in place, or just one push against the wall, Ducky will knock down the support. But it's the Oni Fury for the Oni Warriors.
I mean, I understand that Atlas ult doesn't do much damage, but it's been close to finishing 2 separate kills now. Unfortunate there for Benny Q. At the very least, they're able to win the fight after the Fury and step up for this tier 1 tower. Are the Oni Warriors looking to fight? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like they're tucking their tail and running. They want to try and defend, but they're not going to risk their lives for it. And now, the Eldritch Hounds are heading towards Fire Giant. Pyromancer's not up for a bit. It doesn't look like they're actually going for it. They want to set up an ambush here. Let's see who walks up. Netroid and Pagon sitting there with each other. Do they know this is out? Do they step over a ward? It looks like they're going for the full wrap here. Who's going to walk up?
Oath will be the first one for the Eldritch Hounds. Jake now spotting out the full man squad of the Hounds in the jungle. Will let his team know, hey, good call, not stepping forward. There's a full force waiting for you. Now Pyromancer for the Eldritch Hounds. Jake can steal it away, but instead it's a leash. And now a taunt for Awesome Jake. A quick dash out by Ducky. But having to use the beads, not ideal for the Hercules solo. The Eldritch Hounds start at Pyro, drop it, and are now down a couple of relics the next fight.
They are. They're not going to retreat, though. They're sticking around just in case. I'm thinking the Oni Warriors have an opportunity here. I was going to say to go for the objective, but it looks like to try and kill Oath is the call.
Oath able to dash away from the stun. Panatom goes in with the ultimate, but Ducky finds a knockback at the same time, and a double push once more. Ducky saves Oath's life this time. Jake goes in, finds the taunt. Quick dash out by Oath. Ducky may be the sacrificial lamb for the squad once more. Teleports away with Panatom, who drops them and gets credit for that kill. Now, the Oni Warriors, a man up, can start up. Or maybe at least have already taken that Pyromancer. Oni Warriors gotta know at this point, if this team is getting aggressive, they want to play for an objective.
They do, as Jake taunts in, Benny Q and Quig, and here comes Netroid on the wraparound. Beautiful ultimate.
Finds 3 with it. Oath caught in the middle of 4 and dead before he can even jump away from them. SOT, credit to the kill. 3, 2, and 2 now on the solo lane Morgan. And the Oni Warriors, not the healthiest squad, will walk past the Fire Giant, but just to get ward vision down around the pit.
Wow, and you can tell the other towns are going to give it up. Look at their positioning. They were going to walk away and said, hey, it's a 5v3, 5v4 for a little bit longer. We don't want to step up towards that objective, but as you said, low health bars. They didn't think they could commit to it, and they decided to back off. The objective smart play. The Oni Warriors have been getting the better end of these fights as of recently. I want to rewind a bit, though. It was a beautiful gank from Panatom and SOT over onto Oath. They just missed too much. Ducky ends up inting, trying to save. I don't think he even had a driving strike there. They had no more damage. They just missed too many abilities there. The Dark Omen and the stun from Sod ends up whiffing. Then Panatom just couldn't finish that kill. Ducky does double driving strike them away, but in doing so, cost him his life. And Oath, I think, made it out anyway. That Deathbane comes back up right in time to juke Awesome Jake. Either way, you lose the one. Oath goes in anyways in a bit. You get that kill regardless. The Oni Warriors are going to be fine with that trade. They're still up gold, and they have the pressure towards FG if they'd like it, but Gold Fury is already spawning back in here soon, and it seems like that's where they're posturing, towards the left side of the map more than anything. Netroid isn't quite level 20. You feel a lot stronger going for that Fire Giant if you hit level 20, or you finish that item right there. Deathbringer just goes back, finishes it. I'm thinking go to the right, and look at that. He's already posturing towards the right side of the map. Who cares about Gold Fury? The Oni Warriors want to make a pull for fire.
Elder Towns have stacked 3 on the left side for the Gold Fury. They should recognize the Oni Warriors aren't here, and instead, it's Fire Giant for the Warriors. You called it perfectly, Trelly. Netroid is already inside the pit, and this fire is melting. Ducky is here. No way that he can steal this one, except for only with that boulder with beads expended. Likely will not want to step up. Benny Q's got ult. Does not do an immense amount of damage, but can steal. Typhoon charged up. The Oni Warriors get the fire. Typhoon, it's 3 in the backline. Ducky pushes Pagon away as Vaporous Coast is trying to fight off against the Horde. Pagon thrown against the wall. SOT takes out Oath, but Benny Q finally gets the payload he's been looking for. Double kill for Panatom, and SOT gets a killing spree of his own. Netroid takes down Quig. It is a 4-for-1 trade. Only Benny left alive on the Hounds.
I mean, when you see Pagon that deep in a team fight, you assume it's not going well for the Oni Warriors, right? You're like, wait, what's a Merlin doing that deep in the backline? Unfortunately for Benny Q, does get caught out by Sot. Lazy back it under Phoenix, pre-beats on that pull, and Sot's able to get the full-on deicide. Right side tier 2 definitely dropping. They've got minions, so that Phoenix will go as well. I don't think you can go for the end here. Oath, Quig, and Ducky all up. There's no way they've got the damage for it.
Especially Jake can't tank that one up. Doesn't have Defender of Olympus to rejoin his allies. So the Oni Warriors, Fire Giant, a deicide, a Phoenix, and all it cost you is Pagon. I'd say that's a pretty big win at the end of the day for the Oni Warriors. Not fun for Pagon being tossed around in the backline by Benny Q and Quig time and time again, and by Ducky, but if one lone Merlin can cause a distraction for 3 Eldritch Hounds players, it's pretty good positioning for the Oni Warriors to be able to fight back in there. Coast kind of awkwardly trying to fight against 4 people on his own as well inside the Fire Giant pit, maybe questionable by the Eldritch Hounds. But now for the Eldritch Hounds, Charlie, you've got a couple of towers left standing. Maybe unlikely we see a defense there. So once it comes to these Phoenixes, how does the defense for the Hounds look up against the Warriors?
It's a lot of pressure on Ducky and Quig because Oath has lost his usefulness. You've seen this crit style of Circuit build flourishes. It does fantastic 1v1s in the jungle. But when you're trying to ult against 3-4 members of the Oni Warriors, we've seen it twice now. Oath just dies. You cannot be in the backline with this little tank stats and be, sure, CC immune, but you're standing still to be, you know, hit with auto attacks, hit with damage from Pagon. It's just too difficult. So Oath is, he's only a CC bot now. That's all he can do.
Ducky taunts it back. Awesome Jake picked up by Benny Q, thrown back under the tower, nearly goes down, and the ultimate from Oath will seal the deal. Typhoon does not connect.
What?
Ducky dashes back in, only to die in an instant afterwards. Questionable decision by the solo of the Hounds. The Phoenix has been defended, but I don't think Ducky needed to give up his life for that defense.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that was a misclick. There's no way he wanted a driving strike forward with that little damage. I mean, the Oni Warriors just have so much one-shot potential, as we saw. You just get one stun, one polyproc from SOT, and they can really kill just about anyone. But Oath was able to find a lone target there. Awesome Jake, once again, does not go beads. Because of that, you can get CC chained under tower relatively easily. Benny Q finds a pull. After that, Oath is able to confirm that CC. And this Guardian, relatively easy to lock underneath this Phoenix. Anatom is chasing through the jungle, not going to find anything. Oath's running away here. The Oni Warriors seem to be setting up for another Fire Giant. They are able to break the base on the right side of the map. The left side Phoenix push doesn't go great, but it's only 26 minutes into the game. It's usually lucky if you're able to get one Phoenix down this early when the game's not completely out of hand. 13,000 gold in favor of the Oni Warriors is getting to that point, but you still are able to find a defense if you can lock down some of these tankier targets. And as I said, the tanks have a lot of weight here. Quig and Ducky, and in this case, I forget that Benny Q is also technically a Guardian. They've got that CC for a reason, and it looks like Phantom's looking for Coast.
Will be stunned away by Coast. The dive in, now it's 2v3. Knockup
Oh
only
my
going to land there, but
goodness.
Panatom's got so much damage. Vapor's Coast will fall down. If both Panatom and Jake will get out, but it sets up for the Oni Warriors. You got a lot of damage on the opposite side of the map. Fire Giant should go on all 5 unless Jake sacrifices his life for this one. 3-man chase to the Hounds. You got to get something here. If you've invested this many bodies to the left side, you got to find one pick. It's going to be onto Awesome Jake. Knockup is good. Panatom did not go back to base, questionably, but can now rejoin with his team, clear out the jungle, and fire on 4.
Yeah, it seemed like he was like, hey, maybe I can stop their backs and you guys can push it. And then he realized, I don't have much HP here, and it doesn't seem like we're going for Phoenix anyways with Awesome Jake dead. So they decide to back up. He will be able to rejoin the team in about 30 seconds when Defender of Olympus is back off cooldown, but would the Oni Warriors really walk up? Yes, Sot's got the polyproc. They're able to grab that Phoenix for free, and now just sort of stand here at Phoenix line. This is a good call. They don't have to overcommit. They can stick around, wait for Awesome Jake to join them with that ultimate. Until then, just sort of push up these waves and make sure that the Eldritch Hounds can't leave base. SOT is a threat with this build. He's fully online. He has the Magi's for CC immunity and that ultimate available. He can 1v1 just about anyone right now on the map, especially if it's Oath stepping up. Remember, that's a full damage circuit. You're not in the jungle, so you don't get the benefit of the protector of the jungle. He would absolutely melt. One stun, one polyproc, and you could ult into just about anyone and finish that kill.
Eldritch Hounds holding strong at their mid-Phoenix. Jake is back up and has instead decided to march up the left side of the map to try and get some wave clear. And Panatom will go up ahead of him, clear out the incoming wave of minions. Oni Fury, or Primal Fury for the Oni Warriors, I should say, will be the next selection for them with a wave pushing up in the left lane. No towers left for the Hounds to defend. It is all going to be Phoenix defenses. We saw the success of the Phoenix defense last time by the Hounds. They popped the Magi's from Awesome Jake. No beads means that the next CC locks him down to take him away. The Eldritch Hounds have got to keep doing that time and time again. That is the only frontliner, the only one who can take up these Phoenixes for the Warriors.
Yeah, they're pushing in mid. Remember, Sada's still sitting on the right side of the map. Someone is eventually going to have to deal with these fire minions and the Morgan that is just pushing them into base. But mid Phoenix is the call. The poly shots are already coming through. And it looks like a 3-2 split.
Ducky comes back over, 3-3. Up on the left side of the map. Bird's not taking a lot of damage. Dash taunt by Awesome Jake. Phoenix still alive. Quig will pull the bubble away. A good route to knock that one out. Meanwhile, Benny and Oath will defend up against the mid-bird. Right side is still having minions pour through. Taunt is good onto Ducky, but a pull back on Jake. A knock up in the tower, a root as well, but the CC is not enough. They need just a little bit more damage. Benny Q's ult, that is the third time this
never
game.
does enough.
He has nearly gotten a kill, but is just shy.
It is never doing enough to finish a kill. Panatom is going to get chunked by Benny Q over the wall, and Awesome Jake goes back to base. Blue Defender of Olympus in. Where's the siege at now? Seems like they're switching over to mid lane, but Awesome Jake, you don't have beads.
He gets pulled back into the Phoenix again, does have dash to get away, is trying to juke. to find an opening through, but to the backline goes Panatom up against Ducky. Typhoon channeled, and Typhoon
Beautiful
good.
ultimate.
Panatom finds a double kill, caught out Coast, and now Oath has been left alone as well. Jake will take it with the taunt. SOT to the backline with a Typhoon of his own, sets up for Pagon, and the Oni Warriors with only Benny Q still left standing. The Oni Warriors will march into the throne room. They'll take down the Titan in game number 1 for their squad.
And they're going to have to play with their food a bit. Benny Q with a huge pull is not going to be able to find a kill.
What?
He does pull
Psych.
Jake in the fountain. I was
Got
going
one.
to say, if you get that pull in the fountain, maybe you're able to finish that one. But once again, it seemed like the defense was strong, but Ducky stepped up a bit too far. He was chasing kills. Pantom comes in, uses the Typhoon to confirm 1 kill. I think he accidentally kills Coast. I don't think he had any idea. If looking at his player cam, he was like, oh, there was an Ishtar behind that wall. I didn't know, but thanks for the double kill. And after that, 5v3, your siege is just effortless.
I mean, it looked so great